Dr.Go here. It's about time that I actually start doing the project that I've been talking about. Talk is cheap, but action is where it's at. So I'm in the basement again. I'm going to laminate those marine plywood layers with some epoxy. And I'm using the West System epoxy that I've had for a while. I tried it before, it seemed to work. There's others out there like Total Boat. If you go to, I think, Jamestown Distributors, those guys got everything you'd ever need, I think, for people who are into boats or any kind of wood product that you're trying to do stuff. If you're painting, if you're gel coating, whatever you're doing, fiberglass, and they've got it. And I am by no means absolutely no expert. The stuff that I have learned, I will give credit where credit is due. If you go look up on YouTube at Boatworkstoday, Andy Miller on there is like a fantastic dude. I've watched him for years, just learning so much because I have a couple old boats I want to restore. So I've been trying to learn and take notes and get ready. In the meantime, this will be good practice because this is just 3 places of plywood that are flat that I really can't, well, I could screw up, but if I do, it's a good learning place to screw up. I'm just going to put foam and upholstery on top, and I already had it done. It rotted. I took it apart because it was not marine plywood, and now I'm using marine plywood. So I'm going to use the epoxy. Whoops, let me get it turned. And then I happen to be using a clear hardener because I bought it to do a clear project. They have regular hardener that might be like an amber color, kind of yellowish, varnishy look, which would work fine. Depends on what you want. This hidden one wouldn't matter what I use, but I'm almost out of that stuff. So I'm going to do that. And they come with these pre-metered pumps, which is nice. Even though they're different sizes for the different things, we've got the epoxy and then the catalyst that you got to mix together. When I put these in there, the ratio is already pre-figured out by the way they are designed. So 1 pump of one and 1 pump of the other is a perfect mix. If I need 2 and 2, 5 and 5, whatever it takes to fill up enough to coat that wood, that's what I'm going to try and do. You put it in there, you mix it up for at least a minute, try to be thorough. You know, I've been collecting this junk for a long time, a lot of years, and of course now I can't find it. But just like a tongue depressor, just a piece of plastic that you can get at these places. There's all kinds of things you guys can use round for round corners if you were doing some of that kind of work in square. And I use the square so I can get down the square bottom. They purposely make the bottom square so you can scrape around the corners and get it all mixed up. Try to get it uniform the best you can. So I'm going to try and do a bunch of that stuff. It's going to be boring as heck, so if you don't want to watch it, I fully understand. I'm going to try and do it in shorter video segments. Wherever it's time to cut something off, I'll cut it off and start a new one. Like I say, if this isn't your game, I totally understand. My kids used to joke and have a standing joke. It was funny to them. But long ago, I built a racing boat in high school out of marine plywood and mahogany, and I varnished it. And I built that boat based on the way my grandfather taught my dad. My grandfather built boats in his basement in the 30s, and his roof was about like this. And so he was bent over the whole time he did that in the winter on a dirt floor. He never complained, built 3 or 4 boats, tore the stairs off the house right there in the back in his house, and the door was going outside right there. He just pulled the staircase away, turned the boat on its side, and shove it out the door. He found a way to get it done, and it was all by hand when he did his. So I had a lot of fun and respect. I used some of his tools in high school, and then I got to use the modern tools. But back then he used linseed oil and turpentine to cut it, to thin it, warm it up, paint the wood and let it soak in and soak in and soak in until it was just saturated. Let it dry, wipe it off. And then when he was ready and he built the thing, then he used varnish layer after layer. But if it ever got a scar through that varnish or scrape or a hole, the wood was so full of oil it never swole up and dry rotted the thing, you know, rotting back and forth. In the modern day, I used epoxy on my seat, but I was in the last minute, of course, emergency a decade ago, got to get some boat seats fixed. They're broken. And I just grabbed some plywood and thought, if I put epoxy on it, it'll seal it, which it did. But I forgot that the wood was sitting on where it got flexed and flexed and flexed on the ends with those big old bodies on it. And it cracked open the ends. And when it did that, it let water drink in over years and years and years, and I didn't know it. And eventually, because there's no marine glue to it, it just delaminated it. It looked like a deck of cards that you could shuffle. And I'm actually using it as my workbench down below. You can't see it, but you've probably seen it in earlier shorts or videos. So this time, I'm going to try and screw it together and make it laminated so it's a little thicker. That was 5/8. I've got a single piece. This is 3 pieces of half, so it'll be 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to use the thin epoxy. I'm going to try and roll it on, maybe use some brush on it. I don't know how well that's going to go. I haven't done this in a long time, so I'm sure I'm going to mess it up a little bit. We'll see. That'll be the cut and restart, and I'll explain what I screwed up when I do it. But once I coat it wet on both of the surfaces I'm going to mate, I'll do here and I'll do here, and I'm going to put it together. But before I do that, I've got this 610 epoxy that I talked about before. It's what it's called by the West System, the same company that's making the other stuff. And it gets squirted out with a caulk gun. And it has this unique tube there. I don't know if I can see it well enough, but you see how it's zigzag like a snake, and it's got slots in it because this is our partition tube. It's got half and half in it. The catalyst is on one half, so when I squeeze it, it'll zigzag its way and snake through that, and by the time it gets to the end of crisscrossing, it'll be mixed. And it'll be like peanut butter, maybe light peanut butter or butter. I'll squirt that across after it's wetted, and I'll use the sawtooth trowel, just probably similar to what you might do in a bathroom. There's a flat edge, really fine, bigger and bigger, and I'll use the really fine. I don't need much. I just want to get a good sandwich and a fill. And then I'm going to use stainless steel screws, and I'm going to screw the things together. And I mentioned in a short that I piloted some pilot holes in the one layer so the shank will go through and not start biting, because I don't want to bite the first piece of wood, and when it hits the second, it'll lift and get a gap separation and have a bad joint. So I pilot the first one so it'll slip through, and then it bites in the second one and it pulls that top down into it. I also got some weights here that, of course, I never lift, so they'll come in handy. Finally, they'll get some exercise of their own by using some weight just to hold it in place. But basically, the screws are going to do the work, and I can just leave them in there. This isn't anything critical. They're stainless, so I'm just going to sit on a seat in a boat. It's going to get wet bathing suits on it. So if a junky one lasted a decade, well, I'm getting old. So this Marine Plywood one done right and keep the boat covered ought to last until the next owner takes over. And if he takes care of it, it'll last a long, long time. But I want to do it right for us, but I want to do it right for that next person that gets stuff. I hate jury rigging stuff, and then it's about falling apart, and that's when you try and give it to somebody else or sell it to them, and then they find out it's not worth their time. It's just a mess. So I'm going to do my best. I'll cut this video off right here, but I'll turn it right back on for the next video so you can see me putting this epoxy stuff together, squirting and mixing, and the rest of the boring stuff. But again, the good stuff by the professional would be Boatworkstoday from Andy Miller. I'm no sponsor of his or whatever. I just want to give credit where credit's due. There's incredible people out there, as you all know, on YouTube. I'm just the guy following everybody and learning and fixing my own crap. So thanks to all those who help, guys like me. Catch you in a bit.